Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 441, written by Formidable Ad 4125. The intensity of fear we all felt was unspeakable. My wife, sister, and I are all avid backpackers. We spend a lot of time in the outdoors. But back in 2018-ish, we decided to do pull-up camping with stargazing in Colorado as the main goal. We are from the Midwest. We used a light pollution map to find a remote camping area in San Juan National Forest and planned to hike during the day and stargaze at night. The first day and night, the stars and trails were amazing, and we were all super stoked to be in the mountains and away from flat land. It was the clearest I have ever seen the Milky Way galaxy, and it was phenomenal. After the first night, we all got up early and decided to do another hike, this time following a small dirt forest road through the mountains. We all were having a great time, and there was nothing but positive vibes. I mentioned that our hike felt more like a walk since we were on a road, so we all agreed to take the first proper trail we came across. We had a GPS unit, map, and compass, so we weren't worried about getting lost. We finally came across a trail that ran perpendicular to the road and had a slight gradient running down the mountain. Staying true to our word, we all agreed to see where it went and turned onto the trail. As soon as we left the road and stepped onto the trail, I had an unprovoked and overwhelming feeling of doom come over me. Suddenly, my excitement left me, and I felt almost instinctively that I would be in serious danger if I went down this trail. This unprovoked feeling of doom was strange enough, but when my sister said, "Guys, I don't think we should go down this trail," and my wife responded, "Oh my god, you feel that too?" I lost my crap. We quickly returned to the road and continued our walk. We all agreed we had the same unprovoked sensation once we stepped onto the trail and could not come up with any logical explanation. I have never experienced anything like this, and it still gives me goosebumps thinking about it. Case notes, file number 441. What amazing vibes I get reading the first half of this. My dream is eventually buying a little plot of land in a rural area, and in part making this choice based on a light pollution map. I've always lived in areas that had so much light pollution you could barely see any stars at all at night. This isn't helped by my visual snow. However, I used to go fishing with my dad all the time up in James Bay, Canada. There'd be areas where it almost seemed like you would witness the very edges of the universe when stargazing. There's a sublime connection to the universe one feels when they're able to see the sky as intended, completely unobstructed. Anyhow, about the glitch, what sells it for me is that your whole group experienced the same palpable level of fear as each other. I could buy the explanation that one of you just had a keen intuitive sense. Maybe somehow your subconscious processed an inaudible noise leading you to believe there's a wild animal down that path, something like that. But all of you, simultaneously? Strikes me as more than raw mundane instinct. Bonus file, written by Cinlach. Even ghosts would do with a home renovation. I'm currently a 50-year-old male living in Greenville, South Carolina. And my first paranormal experience occurred back when I was in middle school. I had an uncle named Eddie who bought and restored historic houses, essentially a high-end flipper before we all knew what the hell that was. He purchased a house that was in a historic area of Earl Street here in Greenville. I don't remember the exact street, but it was definitely in that area, and he invited my grandfather over to look at some of the work he was doing. My papa was a carpenter, and I routinely tagged along just to get to spend time with him and watch him work. We got there and got the grand tour, and were told that an elderly woman had lived there and was heating her upstairs bedroom with a kerosene heater of some sort. The fumes from the heater suffocated her, and she ended up dead and wasn't found for a good while. My uncle bought the house at an estate auction because the family was unwilling to deal with the aftermath of that, and he set about working to get it in shape to resell. After Uncle Eddie gave us a tour and talked about what he was wanting done, he asked if we were hungry and offered to run and grab some burgers for us while Papa figured out what he'd need in order to do the work necessary. We gave him our order and Uncle Eddie took off for food, so it was just Papa and myself left in the house. Nothing really spooky happened right off, and from what I remember, there were no vibes to the place, so Papa did what he needed to do while Uncle Eddie was gone, and then we popped a squat on the stairs and started killing time until the food arrived. About 5 minutes after we settled on the stairs, we both started hearing what sounded like footsteps at the top of the stairs, walking back and forth along the hall. Then we heard what sounded like a door open and close. Figuring someone else had to be there, we went upstairs and, to our surprise, found no one else there. We were 100% alone in that house. Rattled, we sat back down on the stairs and waited to see if we heard it again. And it didn't take long before we definitely heard the sound of someone walking around upstairs. There was no denying it was footsteps on the second floor. Then we heard the stairs creaking as if someone was coming down the steps. Only we were sitting on them looking straight up the staircase, and there was absolutely no one there. The footsteps continued down the stairs very slowly, and both of us were too stunned to even move. I remember feeling like I couldn't move at all, but I think that was due to the fear and not whatever was going on around us. I don't feel like anything was making me stay where I was. There was no force acting on me. I was just too freaked to process anything other than hearing this invisible person slowly coming down the stairs. The footsteps walked past us, even making the step we were sitting on creak as it went by. Then it walked into the foyer of the house and ceased entirely. At this point, we both decided we weren't really feeling this ghost house crap and left to go sit in Papa's truck until Eddie returned. We of course told Eddie about what had happened, and we were surprised when he said that he'd heard noises and footsteps in the house too, but it wasn't going to stop him from finishing up the work and selling the house. That's someone else's problem, he laughed, and then asked my Papa if he was able to do what he needed done inside. Papa declined politely, and after some nervous laughter, we left. Eddie's wife ended up falling in love with the house, and he renovated it for her, and they lived up there until his death about 15 years ago. So I guess whatever that was ended up actually being his problem after all. Bonus file, written by Wonderlash. My newborn son, triggering supernatural forces? I know this is going to sound stupid. Please know that I'm a very rational person, but weird things happen sometimes that I can't explain. Something strange happened last night, and I remember something very similar happened when I had my firstborn 4 years ago, which I had forgotten about. I've lived in my current house for 10 years, and nothing eventful happened until my first baby was born. Nothing major, just a feeling of being watched, the sounds of footsteps upstairs, etc. Very subtle things, but noticeable. I'd also wake up and see what I can only describe as an electric man in my room, that I would see for a few seconds, and then it would be gone. I put that down to dreaming. When my boy reached about 10 months, it stopped and things returned to normal. My second baby is a week old. Last night, I was sitting in my bedroom with my newborn, feeding him before I went to sleep, when the nightlight down the hall in my oldest son's room turned off. 3 seconds later, I could hear a voice say something that wasn't my son's. I crapped myself and got my son out of the room and had him sleep in the bed with me. I happened to mention this to my partner today, and he said that's really weird because he slept in there for part of the night last night. No room in the big bed with all 3 of us in there, so he left our bed in the early hours and had terrible nightmares which he doesn't usually have. Is this a thing? New baby triggers weird stuff happening in people's houses? I also remember being on the phone to my mother last year talking about something that was really stressful. The conversation was so tense that I didn't notice the banging upstairs until it got really loud and shook my chandelier hanging in the living room. I got halfway up the stairs when a door slammed, so I grabbed my son and ran next door. I asked my neighbor to come back into the house with me while I checked upstairs. Nothing there and no windows open. My neighbor said he had been hearing banging for the last 10 minutes coming from my house and was wondering what it was. I was so preoccupied on the phone to my mom that I didn't notice it until it was really loud. Anyone else have something similar? Update. My partner and I were in the kitchen making food last night when my toy car rolled across the rug and onto the wooden floor in the adjoining living room. My son was in bed and nobody was in the living room at the time. Here we go. Case file number 442, written by WyattMontgomery. A case of the sun rising, and then rising again. 2 sunsets and a person I've yet to see again. So to start, I like to believe that I'm not a skeptic in any regard, but I just don't know what to make of this. I'm trying to pretend I was just tired, but I don't know how to explain it. A few weeks ago, I couldn't sleep, so at about 4 a.m., I went to the studio I take a class in for college to get some work done. While there was one other person there who introduced himself as Peter. I don't feel bad using his real name because as far as I can tell, he doesn't exist. I said hi, we chatted while I worked. Nice guy. I watched the sunrise. He said he had to get back to work, on the other side of the building, separate studio, but I walked past it on my way in. And I said okay, he waved. He took a few steps away and said, "Weird, isn't it?" I think he wasn't facing me. And since I'm bad at hearing, I assumed I misheard him and just nodded. I swear, 20 minutes after the sun was all but fully in the sky, which I know because the section outside the building is very pretty, but without me realizing it, it was rising. Again. The sky had gone back to dark and the sun was cresting again. I went down and told Peter and he found it funny. I've looked for him on my way in every day since then, since I saw where he sat. Someone else sits there, and I don't know them well enough to ask, but I don't see him anywhere there. Say what you might, but I have no clue where else to talk about it.